Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. It's my great pleasure to welcome today's program Will Maver, who is region lead at Napa Transportation, and Kyler Ford, who is chief revenue officer at Trucker Tools. And today we're going to talk about leveraging technology to source capacity faster and build stronger carrier relationships. So, looking back over the past 2 years, one of the big lessons learned is that companies can no longer stand on the sidelines when it comes to digital transformation. And this applies to shippers, carriers, freight brokers, and others in the industry. So as we move forward in 2023 and beyond, how will technology help facilitate and improve the way shippers, carriers, freight brokers work together? And how will it strengthen business relationships and deliver, benefits to all stakeholders in the industry? Well, those are the main questions we're going to discuss in today's episode. And it's great to have Will and Kyler on the program to share their insights and advice on this topic. So Will, Kyler, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian. Welcome. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, Adrian, great to be back, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, well, happy New Year to you both. Will, you were on the program before, back in early 2022. Maybe before we dive into the topic, just to kind of refresh people's minds in case they're not familiar with Napa Transportation, why don't you tell us a little bit about the company and your operations and your role there?
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. So Napa Transportation is a family-owned trucking company here in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. We've been in business since 1991, so a little over 30 years. Our freight brokerage department, Northeast Logistics, is the brokerage arm of Napa Transportation. So we're an asset-based brokerage company. We run or move approximately 3,500 loads per month between our live load and power-only division. We've been growing ever since we started operations in 2012. So we're going on now 11 years or so in business as a brokerage. Been really successful. Continue to grow with our customers, adding new customer to our portfolio, adding new staff. We've partnered with Trucker Tools for a few years now. First starting out with you guys in the GPS tracking space, and now over the past few months, we've really been utilizing the smart capacity, book it now, smart negotiation features with you guys, which has really helped grow our business and help source capacity for our company. So now that's kind of where we are now, and where we're headed.
Great. Well, certainly the market has been, been up and down, if you will, for the past couple of years. And we're certainly in a different phase of the market today than we were, I think, the last time we talked. And, as always is the case with transportation, just wait a minute and it'll change again, whether it's, which way the pendulum is swinging. So great introduction. So Will, let's kind of dive into the topic a little bit and kind of build upon, some of the comments you talked about there in terms of how you're using technology. Historically, what have been, the main challenges associated with matching freight capacity with demand? In other words, what were the main drivers that led you to seek a technology solution in this area?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the things that we struggle with as a brokerage is finding day of capacity for lanes that we may not have consistent carriers for, or extra freight where we might have regulars for, but our customers have extra volume that our regular carriers aren't able to source. So, that leads us to rely on some of the load boards to try to find that capacity to match with the loads that we have available. So we need a technology partner to help us, find the right capacity for the loads that we have available. We really talk and really try to push the relationship building aspect of the brokerage model here at Napa Transportation, making sure that our coverage reps are building relationships with the carrier partners that we work with and getting to understand their business. That only goes so far sometimes, where, we can rely on those carriers to help move the freight that we have pretty consistently. But when it comes to uncovering new opportunities or moving lanes that we haven't moved before, trying to source new truck capacity, we realized that we need another resource at our disposal to help try to find those trucks, and leveraging the Trucker Tools platform helps give us that visibility to the full truck market, and really helps us nail down where carriers are running and how to best match them for the loads that we have.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like it's a case of both having that visibility to the broader market and broader capacity available out there in the market, but it's also then being able to, capture that capacity in a much more streamlined and automated way versus, having to hit a bunch of load boards or dialing for diesels or, some of the things that you've, historically, have been very labor intensive, time intensive, inefficient and so forth. So I mean, I assume that that's part of the value, so it's the visibility to it, but then it's also, hey, how can we then execute on this in a much more streamlined and automated way too, right?
Yeah, you're right. One of the things that we really try to preach in our brokers department is what we call freight velocity. We want to move a lot of freight through the system quickly. And one of the ways that we do that is leveraging the Trucker Tools platform to help us find that capacity. We can certainly post a load on a load board and get 30, 40 phone calls for it. But that's not a productive way of doing things. What we'd rather have is, those targeted carriers that we know we can work with, make a few phone calls, or have the carrier book the load themselves, the Trucker Tools platform, and get that load covered. That allows us to then, turn around, get that load moved, add same day freight capacity to our network, and really take some of the extra legwork out of the equation as far as having to do all those steps to try to find coverage for one load. If we can get a lot more loads through the system quickly at rates that we want to pay, it really adds to our value and helps us with our margins as well.
Right. So Kyle, shifting over to you, kind of taking the carrier's perspective now. I mean, what has been the response from carriers to these types of technology solutions in the platform that you're bringing to market? I mean, do they see it as beneficial to their operations as well?
Absolutely. I think if you're any user of a system in our world, whether it's user-based or company-based, the usability of it is the key to you returning to continue to do business with that organization, right? Whether you're booking a hotel or an airline ticket, right? We tend to go back again and again to things that are really easy and which we have a great experience. And I think the carriers in our space, the behavior, it takes a little while to adopt a lot of technologies. In essence, I think it's just generally an older demographic in the carrier base. They're a little reluctant, maybe having been burned in the past of some sort of interaction with a broker, right? So historically, they've been a little reluctant to grab on. But once they see how easy it is, once they've built that relationship too, as Will was saying, their preference is to engage digitally and engage repeatedly over and over again with that same broker in that regard. The auto negotiation piece makes it easier, gives them a little bit of control, right? So it's not so much as there's a stagnant number that they need to go after, but that gives them the ability to negotiate. And at the end of the day, they want to reduce the amount of phone calls that they're making as well. They've got trucks to drive, assets to move. They've got enough going on in their lives. They don't need to be spending wasted time kind of figuring things out. So the answer to that is it's evolving. It's getting more and more commonplace to a lot of folks. I mean, if you think about even technology inside the cab that's adopted over the last decade, from ELD devices to now smart devices, that even took a little bit of time, probably lagging behind the consumer model. And now that's caught up. And I think now that people have those in front of them, they have access to the Trucker Tools mobile app to book the loads that Will's putting up there. To have them in front of them is much easier than having to call someone at Napa or elsewhere to find their next load. So we see it growing. We've had tremendous growth year over year on a digital platform and the amount of digital transactions that we're booking. And I just think that's a wave of behavior that's going to continue to grow more and more positively throughout this year and moving forward as people get more comfortable with what that interaction feels like.
Now is the engagement or the use by the carriers, is it predominantly via the mobile app, or do you have some carriers that might be a little bit bigger that might be accessing the platform via, more of a, laptop or, another interface? I mean, is it primarily the app, or, I mean, how do you see the engagement there?
It's definitely both, but as you look at our network, we've got over 325,000 carriers, utilizing the Trucker Tools application, so that network is pretty large. So it gets a lot of eyeballs, right? And a lot of times they feed off of each other. Carriers are gone into the portal looking and see what loads are available. They're also maybe seeing things that come across, then still calling, but the calls are less even because of that, right? Even from Will's side, maybe their brokerages see an interaction with a carrier that they want to then engage with. So regardless of if the digital transaction is being done right then and there because of that, it's engaging these conversations with carriers that Will's going to want to use again and again. He's going to say, oh, this is someone we didn't know kind of was out there running these lanes. We want to have you in our network. We're going to value you as a carrier. We're going to consistently push good loads your way. And that's how they garner that relationship. But without that initial digital transaction, they may not have known the two existed or that they were a good potential match, right? So whether or not it's done the way we hope it would be done, which is you go in, you see a load, you book it, you negotiate yes or no, and then you do it. Or if there's a little bit one more step, I think both are wins for Will and his team, as well as other folks using the platform. So I think it's a combination of the two.
Yeah, this may not be a perfect analog, but when I think about this, I think about how we order coffee now. My wife and I, we're regulars here in New England of Dunkin' Donuts, of course. My wife is really the one that first started doing this, using the mobile app. So historically in the past, we would drive to a Dunkin' Donuts and stop, and then we would have to wait in line to place our order, and then we have to wait to get the order to be made and so forth. And now what we've gotten in the habit of doing is my wife, if I'm driving, she takes out the app and she places the order as we're driving our way there. And, when we arrive there, she just walks right in. The coffee's already ready. She takes it out and, brings it out and off we go again. So no waiting. The transaction was quick and streamlined and easy. It's connected to our credit card. So we pay, all of that is all streamlined. And when I think about some of these technologies that, you and others are bringing to the market with regards here in the transportation space, particularly the mobile apps and things like that, it's kind of a similar type of thing that once you start using it, you realize how much more streamlined and efficient it is and how you can now start doing more with the limited amount of resources that that are out there. I think a lot of times, I think we can all see in our own personal lives how this technology is changing the way we conduct business, if you will, and do purchases and so forth. And I think the similar type of thing is happening in the business realm. Well, this brings me back to you. And you touched a little bit upon this a little bit in terms of the types of solutions you're using from Trucker Tools. I mean, can you talk a little bit about the benefits you've realized from these solutions and how they've benefited your carrier partners as well as your shipper clients too?
Yeah, thanks. And just to kind of touch on what you just mentioned there about the adaptability, or just the fact that carriers are starting to be more inclined to use apps. One of the nice benefits that we see from the Trucker Tools app is the driver's ability to book loads 24/7. We have staff here in the office most of the day, but we do notice that a lot of drivers, when they're working, they work around the clock, right? So we'll see drivers utilizing the Trucker Tools app to book themselves on loads at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning when we don't necessarily have full-time staff working. So that's just another way for the drivers to be able to book freight on their schedule, so to speak, that we wouldn't have had that capability had we, if we didn't have that platform for them to be able to book through that, through the app. So that's just one of the benefits that we see a lot from a broker side, having the carriers be able to use the app whenever they want, when it's convenient for them, whether that's in their truck or if they're at home, and being able to book at their leisure. So that's one of the benefits. The fact that we're able to have visibility to so many different carriers gives our team a lot of extra tools to be able to find those trucks for the hard to cover loads that we have. So from a customer standpoint, leveraging Trucker Tools to be able to find capacity for loads that maybe we were not sure we'd have capacity for, being able to commit to certain loads that our customer, may have offered another transportation provider and they turned down because they didn't have a carrier base or they weren't sure what capacity they would have for those loads. Being able to be more confident about freight acceptance is a huge thing for us. So that in turn allows our customers to be able to tender us more freight. We can be more confident when we accept the freight from the customers that we know that we have the carrier network to help provide those solutions for those loads. So that's one of the the second benefit of the Trucker Tools platform for us is just making sure that we have the confidence to be able to accept those loads and find the trucks that we need to move the freight.
Yeah, well, I mean, you hear that a lot from from the shipper clients that I work with. They always talk about capacity assurance, right? So they want to make sure that the capacity is available when they need it, right, and at a fair price, relative to the market. And I think that from the shipper's perspective, that's what they're looking for from their broker partners is the ability to, quickly and efficiently provide the capacity that's going to be with a quality carrier or and at a good price. So Kyler, going back to you, I mean, when evaluating, the digital freight matching solutions, I mean, what are some of the important capabilities that companies should look for?
Well, I think even before they start evaluating, I think they should start to think about their digital strategy as an organization and how it fits into their current model, the type of culture that they have, and the people that are going to embrace and use it on a daily basis. And that'll kind of give you the outcome that you should expect from whatever you decide to purchase, right? If you're pretty old school in the way that you do business, the clientele you have, the customers you serve, the percentage of your digital transactions may only be a certain amount, and that may be good for your organization. That may augment some of the staffing needs that you have. To Will's point, it'll help push freight through a lot quicker and those easier to book types of freight interactions and let you focus on the hard ones, right? So it may give you that lift to your organization that allows you to keep the pedal down and really do great work. At other organizations where kind of they have a tech forward mindset as a culture, they kind of operate in that regard. They might have a little more capacity to leverage that and put more resources in front of that to make that percentage of their business that they do digitally higher. And I always tell people to just do that and kind of do a mirror check first before you do it, because no matter what solution you pick in the market, it's not going to take you from 0% of digital transactions to 100% just by turning on the switch. It's just not the world that we live in transportation. So just set your expectations to facilitate the growth needs, maybe the staffing needs and other things that you're looking to improve upon, in a realistic way. And then from then you can decide, what's your best approach and which way does your team operate the best? Because digital bookings, digital freight matching, as you will, is used in a lot of different terms in our industry. Digital capacity, sourcing, all these fun things is also different in the way you utilize the tools. For example, if Will and his team are leveraging, our load board digital platform, as you'd say, those are real-time loads that are coming in from TMSs of our partners all around, the world. And that's a different interaction than it is from a standard static load board where loads are being posted repeatedly to the top of the board and different things. So those folks know that like when they're picking these, they're very, clean loads that are available real time, and they're going to use that in a manner differently than they would a typical load board. The same thing with an email parsing service that we do as well. We're going to send the right loads to your folks that we think match up with the type of freight that you historically book or historical lanes. And we're going to try and put in front of you good opportunities there as well. Again, it's not a perfect science always, right? The algorithm is going to give you, their best guess based on the parameters that we have in our system. And that's something else you leverage on top of that in addition to the board. So it's like, I tell people, it's not like a one size fit all shoe from your digital presence. You got to take little bits of pieces as well as the other internal operations that you've been doing forever and kind of put them together in a nice way that fits the goals of your organization. So I always tell people, look for something that's flexible, look for a solution that integrates well with multiple TMSs, which we integrate with many TMSs for that reason. Be able to have APIs available for in-house needs that you guys have. So if Napa has some stuff that they want to pull or ingest internally, and or push to us that we can do that very seamlessly, and it doesn't take a lot of their resources, because I'm sure Will knows that they're in a technology company. They don't have tons and tons of developers just sitting there with their, twiddling their thumbs. They've got plenty to do. So it's our job as the vendor to make it very seamless and easy to plug into at any given time the data that they want to pull and to push, and to make the transactions more specific. And then the last thing I would just say is make sure that the return on investment is pretty evident. For us, we're trying to push carrier reuse, and we do that really well to these guys, so that way they're not just booking one time with one carrier. They have good carriers in front of them that they're going to want to book every time, or as many times as they can, so they can go out and pick up more customers. And at the end of my day, I'm only successful at my job is if I can create more revenue for Napa, not just by helping them with margins and helping them book freight faster, but to give them even more capacity, as Will was saying, to go out and get more and more customers that have confidence in them that they could facilitate all of their transportation needs. So again, a long answer to that, because I would think through it if I'm out there buying today a new solution or thinking about my digital strategy, that it, number one, fits into my company culture and my plans as an organization of what I'm going to build internally, what I need to augment, and also is my staff and organization ready to take this on? And if we implement it, are they going to use it to its fullest amount and not kind of revert back to the ways of old, which again aren't bad, good or bad or indifferent, right? It's how you want to leverage these tools. If you're going to implement them like Napa has, they use them and they're power users and they're invested in the success of them. And that's the real way to take advantage of this digital ecosystem, as you will.
Yeah, well, a lot of great food for thought and words of advice there. I mean, I love how you started the response, which was, hey, before you kind of dive into features and functions and go straight to the technology, you got to really take a step back and really think about your strategy and look at where you are today and kind of what your objectives are and your goals are, because that's going to then dictate the path that you take on this journey. And what some of your desired outcomes will be as a result. So I think starting there is great advice. Not only for this type of technology, but any kind of technology. I think that's a big mistake that a lot of companies take, is that they immediately run straight to the the RFP and go straight into the technology requirements, but don't really haven't defined their problem statement, their objective statement, and their strategy very well, and then that can lead to challenges and problems down the road. So as a way to wrap up, Will, I'll start with you, and then Kyler, you can add whatever thoughts you have on top of that. I mean, what advice, Will, would you give to companies that are just getting started on this journey, and what do you see as some important factors for success?
Yeah, thanks. I think Kyler made a really good point. That's maybe one of the things that we honestly struggle with the onset of the digital freight matching platform with Trucker Tools, is we hadn't really considered how we were going to deploy the technology with our team. So the first few months were spent trying to navigate, how do we handle this new technology as far as the freight bookings that are being done by carriers on their own. What does that mean for the staff that we have here? How do we, balance the needs of the truckload coverage reps with the needs of the carriers who want to book freight on their own through the platform? So we've worked through a lot of that. I think to your question, I guess, Adrian, I would say if you're getting started with this solution and this technology platform, designate a person or people on the staff to be the kind of the point people with making sure this is successfully deployed within the organization. It really works best when you have a few of your staff that are really engaged with the Trucker Tools, smart capacity platform, the Book It Now feature, and that they know how to follow up and engage with the carriers and the way to maximize the relationships with those carriers. Like Kyler said too, we want these carriers to continue to use the Trucker Tools app to book their loads, engage with us through the offers that they make on the loads, and just having somebody on our team to be the point person to handle those relationships is a really important thing to consider when you start with this, because we started with the smart negotiation in August, and since then we've grown every single month from a loads book standpoint. So be prepared to start booking more loads digitally that way, because the carriers are out there and they want to do it. So that would be my advice: is just prepare yourself for a lot of interest in the platform, because carriers want to use the app. Certainly, they know that they still have to engage with the broker when they need help with something, or when a delivery goes wrong or something like that. But from on the front end, the carriers like using the technology, and they expect, I think, their broker partners to be able to interact with them in the way that they want to be doing business. So it's important that you have the folks here, or on whoever's team it is, to be able to handle those relationships and be prepared to deal with the interactions, because it will keep you busy with all the interest that we have from our carrier partners.
Great insight and advice there. Kyler, anything to add to that?
I couldn't echo that even stronger. We'll hit it right on the head. It's just to have ownership across your organization, and I'd say that on any technology you have, even outside of Trucker Tools. I'd have some folks that really own it, that understand it, and then can articulate that to the rest of the organization. I mean, at the end of the day, the Trucker Tools platform is to empower and give superpowers to your brokers at your organization. So and a lot of times it's thought of as something that takes away from their productivity. In fact, it's the complete opposite. It actually should be this extra tool that allows them to book more loads, to book more activity, to create better relationships, and it's at their disposal. So you have to have someone at your organization who understands that and can teach and articulate that and help facilitate those things. And to Will's point, at the end of the day, a lot of folks are going to go home from their job. They're going to sleep, enjoy time with their family, but with the digital presence allows them to book these loads anytime. So I think, having someone that understands that as well, can engage, set the parameters accordingly within the organization to manage those folks that are booking digitally at off hours and follow up is just really critical. So it's great. To Will's point, it will allow you to book a lot more loads. So got to have someone ready to handle that and manage those things and make sure that your folks understand the best way to utilize the tool.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, I mean, I think, if I heard you both correctly, I mean, obviously, you've got to be prepared organizationally for the kind of changes and impact that technology can bring to the organization, and vice versa, both the good and perhaps the challenging, or the need to, perhaps you need to change, business practices as a result of implementing, new technology. And I think communicating that effectively to the organization and have everyone on the same page in terms of why it's a win-win-win for everyone involved, I think is important. Well, Will, Kyler, again, we could probably spend another hour or two talking through this topic, but I think you both provided some great insights and advice on this topic. So thank you again for making the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Adrian.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. Yeah, thanks, Will. Appreciate it, buddy.
Great. I want to thank those of you that joined us. If you're watching this episode on demand, either at the Trucker Tools website or on Talking Logistics, and you've got a question for Will or Kyler, you can post it there, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to respond via that medium. Again, thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.